It's Wednesday, January 28th. The markets in New York are open, and our big number this morning, that's right, $74.5 million. That's a staggering number of iPhones Apple sold last quarter. A simply stunning amount, powering Apple to $18 billion in profit last quarter, making it the best ever for any public company. To put things into perspective a bit, 74.5 million iPhones means Apple sold 30,000 of those every hour. Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Franzen in New York. Apple shares are surging today, and it's taking the NASDAQ higher along with it. Here with the details on CEO Tim Cook's blowout quarter, Jeff Mackey at Yahoo Finance. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, I wish I owned some Apple stock right about now, and maybe three or four more iPhones.
And you and many others. Those blowout iPhone sales took Apple's profits, as we said, to another level. How were they able to sell so many in only 90 days? And are there really that many new users?
Just wild achievement in production. Actually works out to 34,000 to be precise, but who's counting phones every single hour of the entire quarter? That's astonishing. And then you start to crunch the numbers if you're a skeptical guy like I am, even in the face of the greatest quarter in corporate America history, basically, is what Apple just posted. But the addressable market, meaning the number of people with smartphones in the world, about 1.75 billion. That's to be generous. And so basically 1 out of every 20 of those people would have had to have bought a $650-odd phone every hour for, I mean, that many days. I'm a little skeptical. I wonder if there's not something else going on in terms of some folks in distressed countries like, say, Russia buying phones in lieu of being long their own currency as a way to store their value. It just doesn't, it's an incredible number, and I'm sure Apple's right in terms of how they went about accounting for it, but it seems unnaturally strong. It seems Barry Bondzian in terms of performance. However they did it, though, again, it was the best quarter in corporate world history, so hard to look a gift horse in the mouth, and this is a company with a $178 billion. So I want to make it very clear that I'm not slandering them in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly. Interesting to see how those numbers break down. I'm an admitted iPhone 6 user. I upgraded mine. Mac sales were up, but iPad sales, though, were a slight disappointment to the company. Is Apple just a one-trick pony in your mind?
Well, you know, it's certainly a good trick. And the real trick is actually not the phones or the pads, but the store. They make all their money because they've developed their little operating system, and it's pretty much impossible to get your content out. I call it the Hotel California operating system, where you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. All your photos, all your content, all your music, just right there in iTunesville, which is a very happy thing unless you want to move. So it's a great system. iPad sales slow, but customer satisfaction still very high. They're not losing share. It's just that everyone already has a tablet, and there's not that much reason to upgrade.
All right, we know that Apple's got a little bit more under its vest here. CEO Tim Cook quite bullish on Apple Pay. In fact, he predicts that 2015 will be the year of Apple Pay. Do you think he's right? Are consumers warming up to this?
I don't even think the Apple Pay division of Apple Inc. thinks this will be the year of Apple Pay. They're a great company, but let's not go lunatic. You know, these new apps and new technologies that solve problems we don't really have, there's not a lot to be said for them. I'm not so sure about Apple Pay. It's not really taking off like gangbusters. It's got a small kind of wonkish audience, and the value add is a little bit unclear, particularly after sort of the security issues of their own. Frankly, there's just not an entirely safe way to exchange money for goods and services these days, unless you're talking straight cash wearing a mask in an alley. Otherwise, your identity's at risk. I'm not sure Apple has really cracked the code yet on Apple Pay, with all due respect to Mr. Cook.
All right, so let's move on to some other gadgets here. The Apple Watch coming out in April. Is this Apple's big chance to diversify away from the iPhone?
Well, it's their first new big thing, right? It's their first new stab at something entirely different since the tablet. The jury is still very much out on this. The watches are still a little big and clunky. It's not clear the functionality. I guess the selling point for the lay people would be that you don't have to pick up your phone and be rude at dinner by doing this, but you can just glance at your watch by doing that. Apparently that's incrementally less rude. I'm not sure really what function there is beyond that. It's kind of a strange product, and there's been some chatter about design issues, because to get some of the best benefits, like, say, to measure your resting heart rate, to measure your blood pressure all the time, you'd have to have an awful lot of skin contact. And that's not all that comfy, even to the geniuses at Apple. So we'll see how that product does. But man, with $178 billion, and even if that iPhone sell rate slows to say 25,000 per hour for the next quarter, they probably have plenty of runway to get that thing off the ground.
All right, well, riding on this last quarter, Apple's only a few bucks away from hitting a new all-time high. Should investors, whether they're, professional investors or the people who just want to get in, still have a bargain here?
Apple's never a bargain. The stock was up 45%, I believe, last year. Earnings were up 40%, so it wasn't cheap all along. You get these brief little moments where you can buy it down $5, $10. You had that earlier this year. I would personally take one of those moments to try to load up the boat a little bit if you're not long already. But again, the great companies and the stocks that don't whine, and this quarter we've heard an awful lot of whining from corporate America. The good companies never get all that cheap. Apple is never going to be all that cheap, but you're not going to find a company quite this good no matter how long you look. And in fact, frankly, probably in our lifetimes. So, if you're not long and people are watching this and they're tempted to buy and they've been tempted to buy, just give in and maybe buy a little bit. Think of your portfolio like a pizza. Buy a slice of Apple now and save the rest of the pie for later.
Or a bite.
Yeah, a little nibble. Take a pepperoni off the top.
All right. Jeff Mackey from Yahoo Finance, thanks for joining us. And you, of course, can keep up with the latest headlines right here on abcnews.com. You've been watching The Big Number. I'm Michelle Franzen in New York.